Hello everyone. Today we have another list for you. Recently we got a few orchids that when we talk about why we ended up buying them, the reasons usually involve the fact that the plant itself looks really cool, not just the flowers. In fact, some of them have flowers that really aren't anything to write home about. We also realize we have a lot of orchids that kind of fit this description. We think these are the best orchids to have. You can enjoy them and display them even when they're not in flower. Or if you can't get them to flower, like we all know happens sometimes. After a quick look at our collection, the first orchid we want to talk about is the Angraecum leonis. And this orchid's flowers are absolutely gorgeous, don't get me wrong, at least from what we can see in pictures, and they're supposed to be fragrant too. As you can probably tell, ours hasn't flowered yet. But as much as we love Angraecoid orchids, a lot of them have similar flowers. So the reason this one was at the top of our wish list before we got it last year are the amazing leaves. They are fleshy and succulent-like and form a really unusual fan-shaped plant. This species has two varieties that grow to different sizes, and when we first got it, I was so excited to find it for sale, I even forgot to ask the seller how far from blooming it was. So either way, there's no telling if we get flowers anytime soon. And still, I'm not really mad about it, because it makes me happy just to see this little palm tree on our shelves. Next, we have a really obvious choice as a mottled leaf plant, but this one is so gorgeous we still have to talk about it. Phalaenopsis schilleriana is one of the few Phalaenopsis with patterned leaves, and as you can see, it looks amazing. Like the Angraecum, the flowers are also really beautiful and have a really characteristic shape, but they only last so long, and yet we keep this one on the forefront of our shelves. Well, also because it's pendant and that's the most practical place for it, but we enjoy seeing it every day. The newest leaves are even darker, especially if you give them good light. We also have the Phalaenopsis bronze Maiden, which is a schilleriana hybrid. As you can see, it has inherited the spots from its parent. This hybrid is usually for sale as a seed-produced plant, so there's some variation to the pattern. On ours, it resulted in really adorable freckles. So the bronze maiden is definitely another one we also keep for the foliage, even though the flowers are also beautiful. Next we have the Dendrobium rosellum, the latest in our collection and actually the plant that inspired this video. As you can see from the pictures of the flowers, they are not impressive. I'm sure if and when we manage to flower it, we'll still enjoy them and at least feel a sense of accomplishment. But when we saw this plant mounted on a display at the orchid show, we wanted to buy it, regardless of its lackluster little flowers. We love the way the leaves lay flat and alternating with each other. It looks like a houseplant you'd grow on a hanging basket. We've seen some pictures where they get quite long, so a hanging basket would actually look lovely. Some of the other Dendrobium rosellum plants that were at the show and that had been growing in higher light also displayed some lovely purple tones in the leaves, so maybe ours will too. Up next, we have the Encyclia bracteata. Ours hasn't bloomed yet, but we're sure we're going to love the flowers. The thing is, I'm not really in a hurry, because when I see the plant with its cluster of tiny round pseudobulbs, each with a thin grass-like upright leaf, I find it so charming I would grow it just as a houseplant. It also kind of looks like someone made an orchid as one of those miniatures for dollhouses. It has the distinct pseudobulbs and leaves, but at a size where it doesn't take up much space at all. This one is one of the oldest orchids in our collection. And yet, we have never seen its flowers. And from what we can tell from other collectors, this is not an uncommon occurrence. Most of us get this plant years away from flowering, and at this point, if I hadn't looked it up, I would not remember what the flowers are supposed to look like. But I have really enjoyed growing this orchid over the years. The leaves are really unusual, fleshy and completely cylindrical, and every year it's a joy to see them get longer and longer. It's supposed to be over 2 meters long as a mature plant, so ours is nowhere near it. And I'm not sure what we'll do with it if it ever gets that long. But it's a very unique looking orchid that we're happy to have even without flowers. Next, we have another Dendrobium, Dendrobium lamellatum. Another recent purchase. At the time we got it at an orchid show, we just noticed the pseudobulbs. It was in flower, but we barely noticed them, since they were a dull yellow-green color. Now, this plant has been with us for months, and it's constantly in flower, and they look much better now. There's also a variety with more pinkish flowers that I think are even prettier, because they create more contrast. But when we first got it, it was because the pseudobulbs looked so unique. They look like egg-shaped Dendrobium pseudobulbs that have been flat ironed. It makes the plant look so unique and cute. The pseudobulb that grew with us is a bit misshapen, probably because of heat dehydration. But the plant keeps throwing out flowers and looking really cute on our shelves. Other orchids that are very well known for their foliage are the varieties of Paphiopedilum maudiae. We have two of them, the green and the vinicolor. A lot of other Paphiopedilums also have mottled leaves, but I think these are the most common ones. The green one has a really beautiful contrast between dark green and a really light green, forming an almost geometric checkerboard-like pattern. It really is the first thing you see when you look at our Paphiopedilum shelves. The vinicolor variety has dark leaves with tones of green and red, depending on how much light you give it. Ours might actually be a little too close to the lights because they turned really dark red, but we prefer them that way. The flowers are of course really beautiful, like most Paphiopedilums, but really we would keep these even with no flowers. Another very recent plant in our collection is the Aerangis punctata. It feels like a very fragile orchid, but we are doing okay with our other Angraecoids, and I just couldn't resist the freckles. This Aerangis to me is perfection. Beyond the flowers being huge, the leaves are the most stunning grayish silver green, and they are intensely dotted with freckles. On top of that, the roots are also spotted. Some websites describe the roots as verrucose, which is not the most appealing word, but I find them very beautiful, just like the leaves. There are other Angraecoids with this type of roots, but at this point we couldn't fit any more orchids on this list. Maybe we can make another video? This Dendrobium has been in our collection for over a year, and it tried flowering a couple of times, but the flowers faded before opening. And you know what? I haven't been bothered to figure out why. Because this was another one we saw at a show, with no flowers, and bought it without even knowing what the blooms would look like. We saw the pendant pseudobulbs that zigzag and the flattened bright green leaves, and it was definitely coming home with us. And I think it will look even better when it gets bushy. At some point I'll figure out the flowers, but until then, the plant itself makes me happy just the same. Finally, we have Epidendrum porpax. We have 2 of these because the store sent us one by mistake, but we haven't been able to flower either of them yet. And the flowers, although very unique, are not the showiest. Our first plant isn't doing its best, so we're happy we got the other one by mistake. Even though it seems somewhat hard to keep happy, I absolutely love the carpet look this orchid gets when the tiny stems grow close together. I have found myself several times running my hands through the top of the orchid, and I hope I will be able to grow it into a big full pot of fluffy orchid carpet. I hope you enjoyed this video. We ended up with a lot more than these when putting the list together, so if you ever want to see another video like this, just let us know in the comments. We also would like to know, what orchids do you enjoy beyond the flowers? If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, don't forget to do so, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.